Hello to our wonderful viewers and readers at Reality Sandwich. Kyle here, one of your favorite conscious agents, back with another insightful Share Your Experience interview, joined by the wonderful Danielle Nova today. Pleasure to have you on.
Thank you, Kyle. It's a pleasure to be here.
Wonderful. As a member of the psychedelic community and space, would love for you to, briefly describe yourself and introduce us in one or two sentences.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for the work that you do, and just really honored to weave our consciousness in this way. So, I'm Danielle Nova. I've been working in the psychedelic field for over 7 years as the executive director of San Francisco Psychedelic Society. I co founded a new company called Flow State. We have the microdosing facilitator training, which is a training program where we train practitioners how to guide clients through microdosing protocols. We're also doing microdosing research studies. And I was on the founding team of Decriminalize Nature Oakland that passed the first resolution in the United States to deprioritize all entheogenic plants and fungi in the city of Oakland, which then initiated over a dozen cities to pass that same language and initiative at the local level all across the United States. And I co-founded an organization called Psychedelic Recovery that has provided peer support and integration resources for people that are using psychedelics to break out of addictive patterns. And throughout my work, I've provided psychedelic education programs and integration spaces for over 25,000 people worldwide, worked one-on-one with individuals as a guide and a microdosing facilitator, and just really grateful to be doing this amazing work in the psychedelic field.
Well, thank you for all the amazing work that you do. It sounds like you've really built an amazing community and keep yourself very busy as this, quote, industry and movement continues to evolve. Curious, you're involved in a lot of projects. Were you, born from mushrooms? How did you even embed yourself kind of in this space? Were you hatched from the mycelium network? What got you involved even in these plant medicines and wanting to educate yourself and build community?
I love that. Born from mushrooms. Yeah, I believe my consciousness is not from Earth, and I believe that the consciousness of the medicine is also not from Earth. It was inoculated and put here to ascend human consciousness, and that's what I feel like I'm here to do: is to help evolve humanity and ascend consciousness. I've been a psychedelic advocate ever since I was in high school. And when I was 16 years old, I was going to raves and using ecstasy back when no one was talking about that. And that was, definitely stigmatized as a peer. And it's always kind of been in my blood to be a psychedelic advocate. And I remember in high school educating people about dance safe and safe testing. I went through a really difficult process where I became severely addicted to drugs for over 15 years, both prescription medications and street drugs. Went to rehab 8 times, always suffered, told I was going to have the disease of addiction for the rest of my life and that I would never be able to break out of addiction. And I reclaimed my power and was able to interrupt 15 years of severe drug addiction. I almost died from addiction, and psychedelics both interrupted the process of addiction and provided transformational healing to where I can say now I'm been free of addiction for over 8 years. I'm no longer an addict. And I am just such a believer in these powerful medicines and their capacity to heal and transform human suffering and allow us to get to a place of transformation and liberation and joy, meaning, and purpose.
Beautifully put, and congrats on your journey towards recovery. As a filmmaker, that was one of my first storytelling initiatives, was focusing on my friend and his path towards addiction recovery, and where he's at now. Curious, since are you from the Bay Area, and what do you think makes that area so? I like to think it's the epicenter of the psychedelic movement. We've got a lot going on in Oakland right now with everybody doing things there. We have the Shulgins up in Berkeley, and with the tech Silicon Valley kind of embracing the microdosing initiative. What do you think makes that area such a hot spot for this movement?
Yeah, absolutely. We're in the hub, one of the hubs. There's many hubs. I think there's definitely a lineage here of, the Shulgin lineage, the lineage of MAPS, of the movement in the 60s as well on Haight Street in San Francisco, the newer lineage, given that these medicines are been around since the beginning of all time. So yeah, I think that there's just a powerful lineage here. They tend to be widely accepted as, in many areas of California. I think specifically in the Bay Area, there's just a lot of people that are open to these medicines, that are open to discussions around them. I think the movement that we created with Decriminalize Nature really created a huge shift in human consciousness here and public perception, and people feeling more safe to be able to access these substances. And because of Oakland, Santa Cruz is deprioritized, and San Francisco, as well as Berkeley. So it's definitely a hub of a lot of, initiatives that are passing at the local level. And then additionally, there's universities like Berkeley and UCSF that are doing a lot of incredible research with psychedelics. So I think that adds to the overall hub and buzz of a lot of actions happening here in the Bay Area.
Well put. I'd love for you to kind of dive in, as this is the Share Your Experience series, on, I'm curious on your path towards recovery and breaking the cycle of addiction. What was the particular protocol or plant medicine experience that you felt kind of helped you recover and set you on the path, and what was the integration like after that? Could you walk me through the particular impactful plant medicine ceremony or ritual or protocol that sort of sparked that?
Absolutely. So I had been prescribed medication since I was 16 years old: antidepressants, anti-anxiety medications, sleeping medication, mood stabilizers. I was on those for 12 years, prescribed hundreds of different drugs because none of the drugs ever worked because I didn't need them to begin with. And just for context, I became severely addicted to Oxycontin, Opana, dabbled in fentanyl and heroin, and also had addictions to cocaine and methamphetamine. So that's just, the overall picture of what I was recovering from. And I think the hardest drugs to recover from for me were these psychiatric drugs prescribed by a doctor. I was up to 8 medications a day. Even when I went to rehab, I was on 20 medications a day, and that was just normal and what they prescribed. And I remember taking a handful of drugs every single day, feeling suicidally depressed, not wanting to live, and just looking down at these drugs and saying, I'm taking all these to feel better, and yet I feel horrible. And so I went to my doctor to see what else they could prescribe to me. And they said, we've prescribed everything to you and nothing's working. Maybe you should smoke more cigarettes or drink more coffee. And it was at that moment where I had realized I outsourced so much of my power, and I started reclaiming the power to heal myself. And I pulled myself off all these drugs, and I almost died from that process, even through slow tapering. And ayahuasca snapped me out of this really intense withdrawal syndrome. Before ayahuasca, I was having a really hard time talking, walking, functioning. I lost my vision for over a year. I wasn't able to drive a car or just do basic things like do my laundry. I remember my whole day was just surrounded like, how am I going to get water? How am I going to just function? Basic human functioning was lost. So I started working with ayahuasca at least twice a month, and it snapped me out of this really intense withdrawal syndrome. And for the first time, I felt like I was going to be able to function without taking a handful of pills every day. And then I started microdosing with psilocybin. And this was back when no one was talking about psychedelics for addiction. That wasn't even a thing back then, over 8 years ago. So I was really just trying. At that point, I was willing to try whatever I could to feel better. And so I just started microdosing with psilocybin. It was such a game changer. I wasn't able to leave my apartment for weeks at a time. After microdosing with psilocybin, I could finally leave my apartment and start talking to people and put myself out there. And so it really healed a lot of these physical withdrawal syndromes and symptoms that I had been experiencing. I had shaking and tremors, and my brain was really suffering from getting off of all these drugs. And I can honestly say that the mushrooms helped bring my brain back back. And the ayahuasca healed the withdrawal syndrome that I've been experiencing. I did 5-MeO, I did Iboga twice down the line. I was microdosing with LSD at one point. So I tried all different types of medicines at different points. And, I wish I could say there's a specific protocol that I was following, but it was really in combination with doing a lot of healing work, with group process, with processing, with changing my diet, with volunteering. I became very involved in the psychedelic space. That was a huge part of my healing process, in addition to working with these medicines. So it was very comprehensive, and working with a lot of medicines, doing a lot of integration work, and really doing deep work within myself of releasing this identity of addiction, and allowing my soul to come online, and for me to really come to a place of wholeness and acceptance of what I had been through, and gratitude for the gift of addiction. Like, I'm so grateful I went through addiction, because it brought me to this moment with you in this conversation, with this amazing work that I get to do. So it was a big process of unraveling, unlearning, and really coming into connection with myself and my soul, and with love.
Beautifully put. Yeah, everything. I'm a big believer in everything happening for a reason, and you're right. Every moment has led you to being on this interview right now for Reality Sandwich and being embedded in this community. So truly, everything has a divine purpose, and led us to our mission here.
Exactly.
Curious, I recently participated in a San Pedro ceremony, and one of the downloads I received from the plant medicine is this isn't a magic tool. You have to do the work and integrate afterwards, and there's a lot of work to be done. So, I'd love to hear about now, kind of how often are you continuing plant medicine journeys? What was your first integration process like, and what kind of steps were you taking in protocols there?
Yeah, absolutely. I've slowed
Mhm.
down a lot. And now I'm really focused on feeling safe in my body. And I think that's one of the biggest things for people that have been through addiction is an attempt to feel normal, and an attempt to escape this reality, and not wanting to be in ourselves. And it's a powerful place where we can get to, where we actually like being in ourselves, and being in this body, and being in this life. And so I think I would say I still do ayahuasca maybe once a quarter, depending on which practitioners. I work a lot with the Yawanawa and the Huni Queen. I'm a big advocate for working with the indigenous tribes from Brazil. And I also microdose with LSD, and I find microdosing really helpful to continue on my mission and my purpose. It helps me with my business. We like to say that the medicines are on the board of our company. They're the real CEO. Their consciousness is. I'm constantly consulting with the consciousness of these medicines. They help me with my business. They help me with my life. I'll be in ayahuasca spaces, and the past few times with the medicine, it's been like hours of business coaching, where she's like, do this, do that. She's really guiding me in the work that I'm doing. And so I feel like it's all connected. Like, I feel the medicine coming through my DNA and helping me do this work that I'm doing. And I do it for the medicine. I do it because I'm giving back to these medicines. This is how I honor the sacred reciprocity of these medicines for how much they've given me in my life. And um, so yeah, I think it's really important as psychedelic entrepreneurs to be continuously engaging with these substances in whatever frequency and format that works for the individual, but to be consulting with them as if they're your partner in the work that we're doing, and really checking in with them and asking them for guidance on our process.
Well put. I'd love to dive deeper into your first ayahuasca experience. How did you go from your doctor telling you to stay on these meds to finding the first shaman or group that you did this with, and walk me through that entire story. Where was the setting, and how did it all go down?
Yeah. So yeah, it was this doctor basically saying, I can't help you.
Hmm.
And then years of me titrating off of all these substances with the support of the psychiatrist. But then when I came off of them, I was not prepared. There was no informed consent at all for what I was going to be navigating. And the reality is, I was the first patient out of thousands of patients that this psychiatrist worked with to ever come off of medications. They had no idea what was going to happen. So once I came off of them, I started having all these really crazy symptoms, like hundreds of symptoms and shooting pains all throughout my body and feeling awful. And all they said to me was, this is showing you need these medications. This is exactly why you should stay on them. Little did I know at the time, it just meant that I was withdrawing from them, and that even because they were prescribed by a doctor didn't make them immune from being physically addicted. I got physically addicted to these drugs that were prescribed to me by my psychiatrist. So my body was going through this really intense withdrawal process. It had been 9 months of just debilitating withdrawal. And I honestly was so on the verge of taking my life. I was like, months and months and months and months of suffering. It's different from a heroin withdrawal. With heroin, it's a couple weeks. Sometimes people get protracted withdrawal. With heroin, it can last a couple months, but I had no idea that it was going to be 18 months of acute, crazy withdrawal symptom from these drugs that I had taken. So I had a friend, and I told him I was taking over 100 milligrams of CBD just to function every day. I wanted to die. I was in so much pain. And he said, look, I've been drinking ayahuasca for years. Why don't you just come to the ceremony and see if it helps? I'll pay for you for your ceremony. And they had been working with a lot of native practitioners in the Bay Area. And yeah, I just took the risk and sat with the medicine that night. And I remember her saying specifically to me, I'm here to show you a new way. And it was horrible. The whole night was just debilitating withdrawal, so much pain. It really, as we know, the medicine puts you in a process that is going to accelerate you, but you're going to feel more in that process. And so she really increase the withdrawal for me in that night. But I came out of it feeling so much better, and I didn't have to take the CBD oil anymore. And I really felt for the first time ever that I could do this and I could heal. And it wasn't just that one night. I kept coming back to it diligently, but that was such a game changer for me. It was the first time in my life that I could really see a path forward. And I didn't know what that looked like. And just for anyone that's, listening to this, that might be healing or going through a process, we don't need to know what the path looks like, but we need to know to even trust that there is a path, and to trust that there is a process and there's a light. And yeah, I think that's all it takes, is just really feeling that fire of inspiration and that trust that you might not know what it looks like, you might not know how to get there, but you know that it's possible. And that's what the medicine showed me. It opened the door to that possibility, that there's something on the other side. That new way that I didn't even know was possible was available to me.
Excellent. What was the gap between your first ayahuasca experience and you going back for a second ceremony there? And what was the setting where you did you feel like it was in a line with the medicine? A lot of people, again, the arguments we have in this space is, oh, who needs to travel down to the jungles of Brazil or the mountains of Peru versus a tech entrepreneur hosting it in his swanky San Francisco you know loft.
Yeah, it was a beautiful setting in nature, pretty remote. And they had been facilitating hundreds of ceremonies. I felt really held. I felt supported. There's integration after, ongoing support provided. And yeah, everyone was really supportive in the space. I felt lucky to be connected with amazing practitioners. I've worked with some of the top Indigenous practitioners, world renowned practitioners. I've actually, I've sat probably over 100 times at this point, and I've only sat with one non-native person. Most of them have just been all native practitioners from specific tribes that have been well vetted. And yeah, I'm really honored and grateful for that opportunity to be introduced to just such high level practitioners that really know how to facilitate these spaces.
Based off your own experience and when people come to you looking for education or asking questions, what do you advise as the integration protocol, or what is somebody's first steps post this ceremony that they've just went through?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think it's so important, first of all, that people do a lot of prep work. I think if we look at the psychedelic experience as 100%, 40% of it is the prep, 40% of it's the integration, only 20% is actually taking the medicine itself. I've seen that if people focus a lot on knowing exactly what they're taking, knowing what the contraindications are, knowing what could potentially come up, knowing who they're sitting with, questions to even ask the practitioner, empowering people that they can interview their practitioner. There's options out there, and for them to know what safe practice looks like and what great facilitation looks like is really important for people, because I know oftentimes because of prohibition, people just kind of sit with anyone because there's limited access. And so I think it's important to teach people, what a safe container means and what to look for if it's not a safe container. And that's really important to me. In terms of integration, I think, integration is so multidimensional and it's so different for each person. There's no specific end goal beyond, to me, transformation, really utilizing these medicines for growth, for alchemy, for evolution of our soul, evolution of our ego as well. And so I think that can be approached from all different dimensions, from group support. That's why we have over 10 support groups a month with the San Francisco Psychedelic Society. We do a lot of group integration work, processing with people, having that ongoing integration work. I think one-on-one integration work is really helpful as well, helping people understand to make the changes in their integration process. What I love about the research that's being done, like Dr. Manesh Gurn, one of my colleagues, teaches us, is that neuroplasticity in and of itself is inherently neutral. And we know that a lot of these medicines can create neuroplasticity and neurogenesis, but that can go either way, right? So we have these new neurons, we have these new belief systems, but if we just go back to the old patterns and behaviors and toxic patterns of our lives, we're actually implementing them deeper. So it's really an opportunity to create change and really to harness that neuroplasticity window. And that's a lot of what we teach people about, is that they are a participant in that process. It's like riding an electric bike, that sometimes the bike is going to ride for you, but for the most part you have to pedal and you have to direct and steer the bike. And so which way you're going to steer it, and some people don't know the answer to that. And I think that's where facilitation comes in play. I think that's where education comes in play, and really empowering people that they have the potential to create influence on the outcomes of their psychedelic experience. Because I think we've been so conditioned as a society to say the medicine did this, or the medicine, it's because of the medicine. It's the reality is we are the medicine, right? The response that we get from these medicines and the transformation and healing that we receive is directly associated with the level of work and intentionality and processing that we put into these psychedelic experiences.
Very well put. Now, you're on your path towards recovery. You've done a few ayahuasca ceremonies. How did you start to build and want to craft a community in the Bay Area and founding the San Francisco Psychedelic Society? What were some early things you learned, kind of integrating yourself in the community, and how did you kind of spark that divine mission and build, the place where you're at now?
Yeah, absolutely. So the San Francisco Psychedelic Society has been around since 2010.
Mhm.
Um, the idea came from Daniel Jabor, who founded the society. It was the first ever society in the world, and he passed away 2 years after its inception. It was a Facebook page and a meetup group. They had different meetups in the Bay Area. And then in 2018, it was passed down to myself and a couple others after it had been passed, the org had been passed around to different people at MAPS. And we've founded the nonprofit in 2018. And that's when we were also part of the Decriminalize Nature Oakland initiative, on the founding team of that. And we just had slowly built it. At first we were just creating events and educational events once a month, and then at these events we were breaking out into groups, and we were like, oh wow, well maybe these breakout groups are could be their own thing, because it seems like there's a need for people to process. And so we just slowly started building, and then asking the community what they wanted and where they saw there was a need for these spaces. And then specifically, for me, I saw a need for people that could process their experiences, in integration, but also for recovery experiences, creating psychedelic recovery, having specific groups for people that are using psychedelics for addiction. And then during COVID, we created a microdosing course, and we had 2,000 people join from all over the world. And that was a big realization of like, okay, there's a greater need here. Thousands of people all over the world are starting to purchase our educational courses. Because before we were just doing events in the Bay Area, and then we started growing to this global community. We did an event with Dennis McKenna that had 10,000 people all over the world join. So we really started just growing our outreach and creating educational programs that were really accessible to people all over the world. And now, we've grown it from just a couple thousand people locally to over 100,000 people worldwide, and just continuously responding to the needs of the community. And also harnessing the native practitioners. There's a lot of native practitioners that come through the Bay Area. Anytime they come through, we do an event with them, and really platforming Indigenous leaders and their perspectives, their wisdom, their cultures, and providing sacred reciprocity with these Native cultures and people in the Bay Area. And that's a part of our mission. We connect the people here with the highest level of psychedelic education, inform the public about the research that's happening, create access for people to participate in the research. Additionally, build the bridge between people and the practitioners that are doing incredible work.
Excellent. Was the microdosing course that you crafted now, people can sign up for? Was that based off your own experiences? How did you, do the research and kind of come up with the programming for that?
Yeah, so the first course that we did was in with Dr. Jim Fadiman, the father of modern microdosing, the inventor of modern protocols. He invented protocols. He invented taking days off and the Fadiman protocol. So we partnered with him. He participated on the course, and then I partnered with my business partner Adam of Flow State Micro and the Microdosing Institute, and we just put our heads together and came up with, the standardization of education. What is the most important things that the public needs to know when they're microdosing, from protocols to days off to how to integrate the microdosing experience and how to use it as a tool for interrupting addiction and transformation. And it was very introductory. I was, teaching people how to microdose on their own if they were so interested in doing that. And it really came from our work of working with hundreds of people, and wanting just to create, so many people are asking us basic level information on microdosing. And so to put it together in a course, I think was really helpful for people to have that foundation of education to build off of. And then we did it again a couple years later, where we had couple more thousand people join that program and just continue to build off of that. And then that led us to developing our training program, where Adam and I have developed a microdosing facilitator training program with 22 of the world's leading experts. A lot of the information is based off of all these experts and clinicians and psychedelic researchers that teach individual classes. And then the flow state protocol that we've developed from guiding clients through a microdosing protocol was developed by Adam and I through working with hundreds of clients through the microdosing experiences.
And for context, when we say microdosing, we're talking microdosing psilocybin. Why do you think why do you think that lends itself so well to, activating people microdosing versus, say, San Pedro being the popular microdose, or LSD more so?
Well, our programs actually do educate on LSD microdosing as well as psilocybin microdosing. Those are both at the centerpiece. I think for Um, a lot of people, psilocybin is accessible. You can grow a year's worth in a shoebox and it grows on the ground. You can gather it, you can grow it, you can gift it in a lot of places. So it's the most accessible and it's the lowest risk as well in terms of the tryptamine profiles and how they interact with the human body and the human brain.
What kind of research that's going on right now with microdosing, with psilocybin, with some of these other plant medicines is exciting you the most and continuing to spark the creativity and passion in you?
I'm feeling really excited about the research study that we're doing. So right now, Google says over 3 million people have researched microdosing in the past year. And there's only a handful of research studies. There's only one study that was done by Dr. Connor Murray, my amazing colleague at UCLA, who actually did the first clinical study in the United States on LSD microdosing, which proved that it's not a placebo. And there haven't been any microdosing research studies that have been IRB approved with psilocybin or psilocybin containing mushrooms. So we're organizing the first ever microdosing research study that's going to be containing psilocybin containing mushrooms. It's the first ever research study to compare two different varieties of psilocybin mushrooms on the human brain. We're partnering with Dr. Jim Fadiman. He is advising us on the study, as well as Reggie Harris of Hyphae Labs in Oakland Hyphae. So Oakland Hyphae is going to be testing the mushrooms. And what we know now from the testing is that there's hundreds of different varieties of psilocybin containing mushrooms. And if you were to go to a church, they have a whole menu and they say, this mushroom is, going to make you happy, or this mushroom is good for this, or this mushroom is good for that. But there's actually no research to back any claims. We do know that there's different active compounds in different psilocybin containing mushrooms. We also know that there's different potencies, but we don't understand how these different strains of mushrooms actually impact the human brain. And so that's what we're going to be exploring on this study, where we're using two different varieties of psilocybin mushrooms. And then participants in this study are going to have their brain scanned with EEG headsets before, during, and after the microdosing experience. And it will be able to track and understand how certain tryptamine profiles impact the human brain. And additionally, most people take psychedelics in naturalistic settings, whether it's in nature or with friends. It's usually not done in a clinic, especially microdosing. And there's prohibition on clinical research where they don't allow participants to take the medicine home with them. So we're really shifting how research is done to bringing this research into a retreat setting, into a setting where people are more likely to be taking substances, and then testing them on the human brain and using real mushrooms. All of the psilocybin research that's currently being done is with synthetic mushrooms. And so I think that's really important that we start to do research with real psilocybin containing mushrooms. So we're really excited for this research study. It's going to be taking place March 21st through 23rd in the Santa Cruz Mountains and the deprioritized area of Santa Cruz. And we're looking forward to seeing the results that we get from this study. And anyone can participate in this study. And it's IRB approved, which means that the IRB approves it as a naturalistic study. So we'll be able to write a research paper and submit our findings to journals and really have this be taken as legitimate research to advance the microdosing field in such a huge way.
Really groundbreaking there. Curious, how can people sign up? And again, who is this for? Are you looking for participants who have never taken psilocybin or mushrooms? Are you looking for kind of expert microdosers? Who's your ideal, caseload here?
We're open to anyone. We have a whole variety of people partaking in the study so far. We have an anesthesiologist and doctors and nurses flying in from all over the country to partake in this study. This will be their first time microdosing. And then we have seasoned professionals that are microdosing coaches or people that have microdosed before and are interested in being a part of the study. And we're doing the study in combination with a retreat. So we're going to have it's kind of like a conference as well. We'll have workshops with world leading experts. Dr. Jim Fadiman will be there. We're going to have a tea house with mushrooms and a dance party and catered meals. So it's part of a greater experience. And, instead of just doing a microdosing retreat, we're like, well, what if we can do a microdosing retreat and bring people together with incredible education, but also have this retreat be a part of a study, which, people's direct participation can advance microdosing research in such a huge way. Because right now, to advance research, you either have to just donate directly to a research study or somehow qualify for a clinical research study. So we really want to make new way of doing research where people can participate in it, they can have fun, participate in a conference, and also advance and fund microdosing research in a really powerful way. And people can join us at flowstatenow.com/retreat.
Beautiful. Yeah, that sounds like a really exciting time. I'm sure, again, it sounds like a lot of the psychedelic community will be there, and it's still such a small and intimate community. We see a lot of each other at the same events and spaces. So nice to bring everyone together like that.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your support with the work that we're doing. We really appreciate it.
Of course. I'm curious, as you've seen, I don't like to keep using this word industry, but I feel that's just the language and dictionary term that keeps getting slotted here. What is your opinion on where, these are underground plant medicines that now people are investing millions of dollars in. We're throwing awesome events, doing these research studies and retreat centers popping up nationwide. What is your prediction for the involvement of this space and industry? And give me, would love your hot takes on where everybody's at right now.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited. I feel like we're in the juiciest time because we actually have an opportunity to make huge change and shape the future of this industry, especially here in California.
Mm-hmm.
There isn't any type of regulatory body or framework set up. So I think we're in a really beautiful time right now where we can shape it to how we want it to be. I'm excited about some of the initiatives that are happening, specifically what Dave and Reggie are working on. I think it's important to keep the power with the people and empowering the people, and not creating a framework where it's just large corporations or just medicalization. So I see it as a tree. I think medicalization is important. I think first and foremost, decriminalization is incredibly important. And I think that the spiritual use is important as well, and empowering people to be able to have businesses and companies built off of this, and to really create a framework for ethical use and what that looks like. I love how there's different training programs that are available for people, and I would love to see less control, and just more of a tree approach where there's multiple pathways for people, because some people are going to love to access these medicines in a spiritual context with an indigenous practitioner and more of the church model, where other people might want to go to a doctor, or other people might want to do the substances on their own. And how can we create a framework that really meets the needs of the people and all these different pathways in the tree without just having it be one pathway of the tree? So I'm excited. I'm excited to see where the movement goes, and just I'm grateful that we really have the potential to influence its direction right now.
Where can people follow you? Where can they, again, find it to participate in your upcoming study? And yeah, where can people continue to follow the research, see what you guys have going on, and sign up for your either facilitator training or your microdosing courses?
Yes, you can find me on Instagram, Connect with D, and Flow State Ventures on Instagram. Adam is on Instagram. Adam is my business partner, and we have created Flow State and the microdosing facilitator training together. He's also the co-facilitator of the microdosing research retreat, as well as the training. He's on Instagram, Flow State Micro, and our website is flowstatenow.com. Also flowstatenow.com/MFT. That is our training program. flowstatenow.com/retreat is the upcoming retreat in just a couple weeks here. And you can find the Psychedelic Society SF on Instagram, or psychedelicsocietysf.org. And yeah, just really thanking anyone that's watching this. And we'd love to know you and collaborate with you in any capacity. We really thrive off of collaborations in the space. And thank you, Kyle, so much for the amazing work that you do with Reality Sandwich and accelerating the work in the psychedelic space in such a huge way, and just, honoring everyone who's watching this, doing their own individual work on themselves in the space. I know it takes a particular person to be able to engage with these medicines, and just really appreciate you. And I also want to appreciate the medicines and, the spirit of all these medicines. We do this in partnership with them. I'm so grateful for these incredible, powerful tools, and really looking forward to the future that we get to create in the psychedelic space.
Excellent, Danielle. Thank you for getting vulnerable with me here today. And yeah, can't wait for everybody to enjoy this. Thank you.
Thank you, Kyle.